A 90-year-old woman recently walked into my office with a fixed annuity paying 4.5%. And the real opportunity wasn't the rate itself, it was the six-figure tax bill waiting to happen. Here's how we diffused it. I want to say up front that I'm not a huge fan of annuities. Most of the time, I believe that there are usually better tools. But for every rule, it has an exception. I believe annuities do have their place. But this case was a perfect example of when annuities can make sense and when it's time to unwind one carefully. I'll call her Ruth. Ruth was 90. She was in great health with a fixed annuity she'd had for decades. About 90% of the value of the annuity was growth. It was deferred growth that had never been taxed. Here's what most people don't realize about tax-deferred annuities like Ruth's. The deferral does not erase the tax bill. It simply kicks the can down the road, postpones it. And it postpones it as ordinary income, not capital gain. That means for every dollar of gain, whenever it comes out, it gets taxed at your ordinary income tax rates, which are usually much higher than capital gains rates. And if Ruth never touched it, her kids would inherit it and be forced to pay that ordinary income tax themselves at whatever bracket they're currently in, which for working age parents means usually a lot higher than where Ruth was at the moment. So doing nothing wasn't safe. It was quietly setting up the biggest tax bill of this family's plan for the people least equipped to absorb it. Ruth, she didn't need the money. Her goal was to pass it on to her grandkids eventually. So we built a plan around lowering the total tax bite across the whole family, not just managing the account. So first, we systematically liquidated the annuity over several years instead of all at once, pulling out just enough to leave Ruth in her current tax bracket, rather than triggering a huge tax year spike in that current year, or to be taxed later at the kids' higher rate. Second, as we liquidated, we reinvested the money into low-cost ETFs. And why that matters? Those ETFs get a step up in cost basis when they pass on to their heirs. That means the decades of embedded capital gains inside the annuity effectively disappear for tax purposes the moment those assets they transfer over. Something that could have never happened inside the annuity itself. So the combination was we realized the gains gradually at the lowest tax bracket across the whole family, then convert it into assets that erase future capital gains at death entirely. And along the way, we also rebuilt the portfolio across her grandchildren's time horizon and their risk tolerance instead of a 90-year-old's, because the 4.5% was reasonable for Ruth, but far too conservative for money that wouldn't be touched probably for 30 or 40 years. So this is why I say annuities have their place. But they're not a set it and forget it decision, especially when it comes to estate planning and how that gets intertwined. Ruth's plan wasn't avoiding annuities or loving them. It had nothing to do with that. It was about asking, who does this money actually belong to, and what's the most efficient way tax-wise to get it to them? So if you're sitting on an old annuity and you're not sure what it means for your taxes or your families, that's exactly the conversation we should have. Reach out. Let's have a look.